She was an extraordinary heroine on the path of truth, the undisputed sovereign of the mystics. Even the greatest saints, like Hasan al-Basri, drank from the fountain of her wisdom. She remains an exceptional soul before whom the powerful of this world bowed to beg her forgiveness and receive her blessing. To grasp the depth of her being and recount her journey is no easy task. Only those whose hearts have been touched by a ray of her spiritual light can truly comprehend her greatness. She was a servant, acknowledged by the heavens themselves. Her life led her from the slave markets to the celestial heights, from the chains of servitude to the absolute freedom of divine love. The day when wild gazelles gathered peacefully around her, the night when the Kaaba itself moved toward her. These are events that transcend ordinary understanding. This is not merely a story. It is the odyssey of a heart wholly devoted to its creator. She did not worship God out of desire for paradise. She did not worship him out of fear of hell. She worshipped him solely because she loved him with an absolute, selfless love. This is the extraordinary journey of Rabia al Adawiyya. She lived during the 1st and 2nd centuries of the Hijri era. The circumstances of her birth were themselves shrouded in mystery. This woman, like a precious pearl, was born in a humble home in Basra, the city that would become the cradle of Sufism. Her father owned nothing except that dilapidated little house, yet his heart overflowed with the light of sacred knowledge. The Most High had filled him with faith, contentment, devotion, and gratitude. People called him the Pious One, the Devotee. His real name was Ismail, and he perfectly embodied that honorable title. He devoted his life to worship, burning like a candle day and night, spending every breath in remembrance and gratitude to his Lord. And now a child was about to be born to this blessed man. It was a freezing night. Snow and biting wind pierced the air. They had neither wood for a fire nor oil for a lamp. Despite the biting cold and utter poverty, the mother was about to give birth. The father was weighed down with sorrow, and his wife shed burning tears that fell onto the frozen floor. She begged her husband to go ask a neighbor for a little oil for their lamp. Ismail had sworn never to ask anything of any creature, but he went out into the darkness anyway. He reached a neighbor's door and raised his hand to knock, but his arm fell. He could not bring himself to do it. He returned to his wife and simply said that no one had answered. The poor woman, weak, frozen, and desperate, wept until sleep overtook her. Sometimes sleep snatches us away from this world. In the heart of the night, a vision was granted to her. A man with a face radiant as the sun appeared to her. It was none other than the messenger of God, peace and blessings be upon him. He asked why she was crying so. Before she could answer, he continued, telling her not to grieve, for the daughter she was about to bring into the world would be among the most exalted of his community. She would wear the crown of sainthood upon her head. He instructed her to tell her husband to go to the governor of Basra and deliver this message. Every night, the governor was accustomed to sending 100 blessings upon the prophet, but one night he had forgotten. As compensation, he was to give them 400 gold dinars. That same night, the governor of Basra also received a dream vision. He was told that a visitor would come to him the next day and that he must listen to him and help him. The woman awoke with a new light on her face. She joyfully called her husband and told him they were saved, for she had seen the messenger of God in her dream. She urged him to hurry to the governor and explain their situation. Ismail wrote the message on a parchment and went to the palace. The governor was already awaiting the visitor foretold in his vision. As soon as someone knocked, he ordered that the man be brought in immediately. Ismail entered and handed the parchment to the governor, explaining that the message came from a lofty source. The governor read it and burst into tears. He exclaimed that this man was blessed and that out of reverence for the prophet, he was giving him 12,000 pieces of gold. He placed them in Ismail's hands. Thus, Rabia came into the world, accompanied by a miracle. Her destitute father flew home like a bird, drunk with joy. Through his patience and absolute trust in God, he was rewarded in a way no one could have imagined. Little Rabia entered the world wrapped in multiple blessings. She was like a beam of light, growing under the protection of the saints, developing like a tender shoot. Every aspect of her being reflected nobility and faith. She was as beautiful as a sun-bathed tulip, and whoever saw her was amazed by the excellence of her character, her manners, her gestures, her way of speaking. Everything about her was unique and remarkable. Time flowed relentlessly. Days followed nights, and nothing in this world remained unchanged. Some days were like summer, others like winter. Some brought sweet joys and bitter sorrows. True strength lay in welcoming both sweetness and bitterness with equanimity, drinking poison as though it were the water of life, and showing unwavering loyalty to the Creator. Like this inconstant world, Rabia's life also knew upheavals. As she was about to enter adolescence, her father passed away. Soon afterward, her mother followed him to the hereafter. Rabia was left alone with her 3 sisters. All the suffering of this fleeting world fell upon her fragile shoulders. Orphaned, destitute, lonely, and drowned in grief, the 4 young girls thought deeply about their future. They made a decision filled with hope and faith. They would work to survive, for God never abandons his creatures without granting them sustenance. At first, they managed to fend for themselves. But misfortune had already knocked at their door. A terrible famine devastated Basra, and people stopped caring for one another. A cruel man captured the 4 sisters and dragged them to the slave market. He sold each of them to a different master. The sisters were separated amid tears and lamentations. How can one reach serenity without passing through trial? How can one taste peace without having known adversity? Thus Rabia began her journey through tribulations. From then on, she would say that her palace was the realm of suffering. By day, Rabia served her new master. By night, she worshipped her Lord. One day her master sent her on an errand. On the way, she stumbled and fell. She leaned on her hand, pressed her face to the scorching ground, scooped up the hot sand, and began to pray with fervor and love. She implored her Creator, the helper of the forsaken. She was an orphan, living in pain, bound by the chains of slavery. She could endure any affliction, but one fear consumed her heart and terrified her, that she might not have found favor in his sight. At that moment, a voice filled with light reached her. It told her that she would be raised to a station so lofty that even the angels of heaven would envy her. Rabia, with eyes like a doe's, trembled like a wounded bird. The fragrance of divine love flooded her heart. She redoubled her worship. She fasted by day and prayed all night, like a candle keeping vigil beside the mihrab. She grew in the house of devotion, and her heart bore the scars of burning longing. It was a peaceful night, bathed in moonlight. Flowers slept in the garden, and birds rested in their nests. Yet one soul remained awake, weeping and praying in the depths of the night. That soul was Rabia. She prayed with such fervor and love that the very heart of the night trembled. Relentlessly she beseeched her Lord, telling him that she had given him her whole heart, yet he had made her the slave of a human being. Had she been free to choose, she would never have abandoned his worship for even an instant. Her master, the man who had bought her, heard her sobs. He looked through the keyhole and saw Rabia prostrate, forehead to the ground, before her Lord. She kept repeating that she was overwhelmed with sorrow, that she wept, that she was in need, and that she begged his help. Above her head shone a radiant lamp that hung from no support and floated in the air. The light surrounding her was so intense it dazzled the eyes. The man who witnessed this extraordinary scene was seized with holy dread and silently returned to his room. The next day he summoned Rabia and told her he offered her 2 choices. If she wished, she could become the mistress of the house and he would marry her. But if she did not want that, he would grant her freedom. Rabia, like a wounded bird, answered softly that she wished to be set free. She did not want anything to stand between her and her Lord. She longed to worship him according to her deepest desire, and thus the chains binding her soul were broken. This pure-hearted woman turned away from riches, marriage, palaces, and silken garments. She chose a humble hut. She was now entering an entirely new world. In that modest, bare shelter, she resumed her worship of the Lord day and night. The fragrance of divine love had filled her soul, and her inner eyes overflowed with wisdom. Some nights she performed 1,000 cycles of prayer. she desired nothing but the love and pleasure of God. She often cried out in tears that He alone was eternal, that she had not just begun to love Him. She had loved Him from the beginning, from the day of the primordial covenant. Some nights, after the night prayer, she would climb onto the roof of her hut. She would gaze at the moon and stars, lost in contemplation and ardent longing. She would whisper that the stars were shining, that eyes were closed in sleep, that kings and sultans had locked their gates, that everyone was with their beloved, and that she, once again, stood before Him. Her nights always passed like this. And when dawn broke, she would exclaim with renewed feeling that another night had gone by, and she would ask whether she had been accepted. If only she knew He was pleased with her, how overjoyed she would be. She begged Him to gladden this heart that burned with love for Him. To love is like facing a lion. It is no easy thing. Many see with their eyes, yet their hearts sleep. Others, though their eyes are closed, have awakened hearts. One day, a respectable man came to her and asked, in the name of God, to teach him even a single letter of her wisdom and virtues. A spark lit Rabia's face as she answered that since the day she was born, she had never held two coins in the same hand at once. She feared that possessing them together might divert her from the path and from love of her Lord. Another day, Sufyan, one of the great saints of her time, was in her company. He raised his hands and prayed, asking God, the helper of all, to grant him peace. Rabia's eyes filled with tears, and she began to sob. Sufyan asked why she wept. With sorrow, she replied that he had made her cry. He was astonished and asked how. Rabia explained that he did not know that true peace in this world is obtained only by abandoning it, yet he was still steeped in it. How could he ask for peace while clinging to worldly things? He asked her who, among the seekers of God, was closest to him. Rabia answered at once, "Those who take no friend and no goal other than God, neither in this world nor in the next." One day Rabia was overwhelmed with grief. A friend visited and found her in tears, her face streaming. The friend was astonished and asked why she, who desired nothing of this world and was so close to God, wept like this. Rabia, drowning in tears, answered that she feared separation. What would she do if, at the moment of death, her Lord told her He had no need of her? Sufyan, that man cherished in the gardens of wisdom, once again had a profound conversation with Rabia about the mysteries of this world and the hereafter. At one point he said he felt immense sadness. Rabia's lips parted gently like opening poppies. She told him it was not true, for if he were truly sad, he could not enjoy happiness. She added that she herself was sad, not because she carried sorrow, but because she did not feel it deeply enough. Sufyan was speechless. When the fragrance of divine love truly fills someone's heart, there is no turning back. Rabia had reached that point. She sailed upon the ocean of divine love like a fragile boat. One night, her heart ablaze with love, she raised her hands to the heavens and prayed, "If you do not show me your face, I will weep and complain only to you. Does a friend treat a friend this way?" At that moment, she felt divine light enter her heart. A voice brushed her soul, asking her not to think ill of him. She cried out at once that she could never think ill of him, that she returned to him again and again, that he was all she desired. The bird of love does not nest in just any tree. Only lovers truly understand a lover's heart. Sufyan later recounted that he had spent an entire day and night with Rabia, discussing spiritual mysteries to the point of forgetting she was a woman and he a man. When their conversation ended, he realized how destitute he was and how she was like a barefoot queen walking among stones. This pearl-like woman was filled with joys from another world. Her modest hut was not merely a dwelling, it was the cave of lovers. The only words that echoed there were of love and eternity. One day, someone who admired her purity asked about her origin and destination. Rabia smiled gently and said she came from the eternal world and was returning there. The man, still puzzled, asked what she was doing in this world. She explained that she knew she was only passing through, which was why she wandered in sorrow and longing. She desired only God. The man asked one last question, assuming she loved the Most High and regarded the devil as her enemy. Rabia paused and looked at him. She was surprised by the question. It was regrettable that the devil had not yet submitted to God. With a pained sigh, she declared that she truly loved God. She loved her Lord, but she did not call the devil her enemy. Love of God had so completely filled her heart that there was no room left for hatred of the devil. It was a spring day. Birds spread their wings, roses bloomed in 1,000 colors. Rabia was in her little hut, lost in reflection. In the highest realms of meditation, secrets and wisdom constantly revealed themselves in the mirror of her heart. At one point, her devoted attendant, who never left her side, stepped outside. The world that day was magnificent. She invited Rabia to come and behold what the Creator had fashioned. Rabia told her to come back inside instead and contemplate the Creator himself. Her love had so utterly possessed her mind that she no longer had time to look at what he had created. That night was calm and silent. A thief passed by Rabia's dwelling. He entered, hoping to steal something. He searched carefully, but what could this poor woman possess? All he found was a clay bowl. He took it and headed for the door. But strangely, the door he had entered through had vanished. The thief was stunned. How was this possible? The door had disappeared. In panic, he dropped the bowl and the door reappeared. He reached for the bowl again and the door vanished once more, becoming a solid wall. Whenever he let go of the bowl, the way lit up and the door returned. But the moment he touched it, the door dissolved. As the thief stood trembling with fear and wonder, a voice arose from the unseen, powerful enough to shake the heart. It told him it was useless to try. Rabia had been wholly devoted to him for many years and was one of his chosen servants. At that very moment, she was sleeping. Yet even in her sleep, her friend watched over her. The voice commanded him to leave, for there was nothing here for him. The thief, filled with terror, fled like an arrow into the darkness and vanished into the night. One day a man came to this moon-faced, great-hearted Rabia. He looked dejected and had wrapped cloth around his head. Rabia asked why he wore the bandage. He explained he suffered from a terrible headache. She asked his age. He said 30. She then asked whether, during those 30 years of good health, he had ever wrapped cloth around his head in gratitude to God. Yet now, after only a few days of pain, he wrapped his head in complaint. The man had no answer. Instead, he began pouring dust on his head in remorse. Another time, a lost man entered Rabia's little hut in the dead of night, but found nothing to steal. As he was about to leave, Rabia called to him and told him not to go empty-handed. If he had any sense, he could still profit from his visit. The thief frowned and said sadly that he had found nothing. Rabia replied that he should not leave destitute. She told him to take the water, perform ablution, pray 2 cycles of prayer, and then go. Perhaps his path would be transformed. The thief did as she said. Rabia, holding the fragrance of divine love in her pure heart, raised her hands and prayed to her Lord. She told him that this man had found nothing to take from her house, so she had sent him to his door. She begged him not to deny him his mercy and grace. The man began to pray, and during prostration, he wept and begged God's forgiveness all night. At dawn, Rabia asked how his night had been. The man raised tear-filled eyes and slowly answered that it had been blessed. He had stood before his Lord with all his sins, and he had accepted him. He had been given the pearl of peace in his heart. Thus it is. The great forgive the small. No one goes to his door and returns empty-handed. Rabia joyfully exclaimed that this was the kind of gazelle a hunter should catch. Then she raised her hands and said that this man had stood at his door for only a few hours and had been accepted. What about her, his servant? Had he accepted her too? At that moment, a voice echoed in her soul. He had accepted him because of her. Rabia was a woman whose love for God could not be measured. One day, the great scholar Sufyan asked her what the truth of faith was. Rabia, with the gentleness of a lovebird, replied that she did not worship God out of fear of hell or desire for paradise. If she did, what difference would there be between her and a servant working only for wages? She worshipped him because she loved him and yearned for him. Where tears flow, mercy flows too. One day Rabia passed by the house of Hasan al-Basri. Who knows what sorrow filled his heart? The tears, falling from the master's eyes, landed on Rabia's face. She thought it had begun to rain. Looking up, she saw Hasan al-Basri weeping. Her heart fluttered like a little bird, and she advised him to hide his tears so people would not see them, and he would be protected from ostentation. Those words remained in Hasan al-Basri's heart like a precious seed. Later, by the banks of the Tigris, he met Rabia again. They had a deep conversation about the mysteries of this world and the next. As the time for the afternoon prayer approached, Hasan announced that the hour had come. He spread his prayer mat on the water and began to pray. He pronounced the opening takbir, but Rabia, even more advanced in spirituality, threw her mat into the air and prayed while floating in the sky. When the prayer ended, she leaned toward the water and asked the master if he had finished. Hasan said yes. Rabia smiled like a flower and told him that what he had done, fish could do. What she had done, birds could do. But true lovers of God never truly finish their prayer, for they are constantly in his presence. She invited him to descend from the sky and the water so they could unite in the love of God. The real miracle is not walking on water or flying in the air. The real miracle is rising above both. Hasan al-Basri felt an intense fire ignite in his heart and exclaimed that she had deeply shaken his soul. Rabia's lips parted gently, and she asked where the heart was, for they no longer even possessed one. Fighting the lion of divine love is not for everyone. Rabia performed deeds so extraordinary that the mind itself was stunned. She sailed upon an ocean so profound that reason stood in awe. Many nights she burned like a headless candle and prayed to her Lord, the knower of all secrets. She asked him to settle the worldly affairs of his enemies and grant his true friends their wishes for the hereafter. As for herself, she was free of both. Even if she lost in this world and the next, if she could be near him for just one moment, she would have no affliction. Her entire struggle was for him. Her pillow was a simple, unbaked brick, and her fever-racked body trembled like a leaf in the wind. Malik ibn Dinar, heart aching, asked her, "O Rabia, so many people love you and want to help. Why do you refuse a soft bed, a plush cushion, anything to ease your suffering?" Rabia turned her emaciated face toward him, but her eyes shone with a light no longer of this world. She answered softly, "Malik, how can I accept better treatment than my beloved?" The messenger of Allah, peace and blessings be upon him, slept on a mat that left marks on his blessed side. How could I dare sleep on silk when my prophet slept on straw? Everything I have here is only what he accepted for himself. I want nothing more. Then she smiled, a smile so pure it lit the room, and added, "Besides, I will not remain long in this house of clay. Soon he will call me. And I do not want to arrive at his door carrying the weight of one extra cushion." A few days later, the signs of parting appeared. The saints and pious ones of Basra gathered around her. Hasan al-Basri, Sufyan al-Thawri, Malik ibn Dinar, and Rabia herself all wept like children. They asked her, "O Rabia, who will pray for us after you are gone? Who will remind us of Allah when you have left?" She weakly raised her hand as if to caress their faces and said, "Do not weep for me. Weep for yourselves if you forget the one I never forgot. And when I am gone, do not say Rabia is dead. Say rather, Rabia has finally arrived at her beloved's home." Then with her last breath, she spoke these words that still echo in the hearts of lovers. "O my Lord, you know that my only desire was to see you. But since you have veiled your face from my eyes in this world, I content myself with your love. So take me now, for I have no home but you." And she surrendered her soul. Yet the very instant her spirit left her body, it is said that an immense light rose from her little hut and ascended to the sky, so bright that it eclipsed the moon. The desert gazelles came and lay down around her grave. The birds fell silent, and the angels, it is whispered, descended in procession to welcome her. To this day, whoever visits her tomb in Basra still smells the fragrance of pure love that rises from it. And whoever pronounces her name with reverence feels their heart tremble, as if Rabia from above still whispers to them, "Love him. Love him only for himself, and everything else will be given to you besides." She left behind no book, no school, no wealth. She left only a heart burned by love. And that heart is enough to illuminate the world until the day of judgment. O Allah, by the blessing of Rabia al Adawiyya, make our hearts blaze like hers. Let us die in love with you and raise us among those who love you only for yourself. And may the blessings and peace of Allah be upon our Master Muhammad and upon his family and all his companions. All praise is due to Allah, Lord of the worlds. She has gone, but love itself has never left.